we come to the end of this global conversation today, we are honored to have Eva Kaili of the European Parliament speak to us about the future of responsible digital transformation. Ms. Kaili is Vice President of the European Parliament, and she is the first woman to chair the Center for Artificial Intelligence. She has been the draftsperson of legislation in the fields of blockchain technology, online platforms, big data, fintech, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity. We are very grateful you have joined us today, Ms. Kaili. The floor is yours, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'm sorry, but I'm between flights, so I'm not at an office. I really want to thank you and congratulate you from your platform and also your project. I have been following your work, and I have read some of the reports that they are there, and some examples that sometimes I use in my speeches. So I think it's very important that we manage to discuss. Also because when I was chairing the Science and Technology Committee, now I'm a Vice President responsible for it and the technology, I visited US and your university, and I realized my awareness was raised on the fact that AI is already here, and that if Europe actually don't try to do something about it, the regulation, then it would maybe be too late to control the, let's say, the unwanted consequences, because a technology is not bad and it's not good. It's up to us how we use it. So what we try to achieve is to take all the advances of AI, all the benefits of AI, and make sure we will avoid the negative impact that it could have, or I would say to break these black mirror scenarios that we have. I think some of us maybe watched on Netflix and realizing that all these technologies that can really harm and violate everything that we have worked for, all our principles, they are already here. So we really need to do something about it. Basically, I'm usually calling it to tame AI. You can say control AI and make sure that it will play a complementary role and not to replace us. Stephen Hawking, actually one of the brilliant minds of our century, said that AI could be the best thing that happened to us or the worst. And hopefully it will make it the best. Although it's probably both. We are struggling now in the European Parliament to reach to a definition of AI, and I dare to say that AI is basically, in an artificial manner, what is intelligence, human intelligence, the process of knowledge and information in a creative manner, and the possibility to make decisions, to solve problems, to optimize solutions, and even make predictions in order for you to act, take the next step. And it's already here. So some colleagues, I remember like 3 years ago, they were telling me it's a science fiction thing. It's going to happen like much later, like autonomous vehicles. And I was in California, and I saw that actually we have autonomous vehicles. We are testing them already, and we need to ensure that we will remain safe. So I think this is basically the core of our common mission. We all have Google Maps in our hands, or Waze, or some application that tells us any route that you think you know, they know best, and slowly they gain our trust. They know if there is an accident, they know if there is a traffic jam, and we trust it enough to follow the path that it shows. So AI is here, we use it already, we trust it too much already. Perhaps it knows us better than we know ourselves, and it suggests who should our friends be, from our likes and dislikes, and like wherever our attention is engaged, they know what is our interest and how the content can keep us can keep us there in the newsfeed of Facebook or of other social platforms. Now, in the Parliament, because I think it's really important to understand that we have one of the biggest legislative bodies trying to create a law in which the ethics for AI will be described, and we will have an approach that is going to be risk-based. Let me start saying, because everybody is like quite defensive when we talk about regulating. We don't regulate the technology, we regulate some applications, the harmful ones. It's less than 10%. Basically, what could harm us, what could actually impose big risk to humanity: autonomous vehicles, weapons, in terms of mobility, in health, how we use our health data to predict, diagnose, like present therapies, in education or control of our borders. So several sectors that we consider they are they can be harmful. And also we are looking to collaborate more with our like-minded partners and democracies via different regimes and mindsets. Although we have to engage everybody, perhaps we should work together to achieve an international law, because we don't want to have the Chinese approach that we need to compromise our privacy for safety. We need to have both. We ban social scoring. We don't allow biometric surveillance. We can use that for specific applications that can benefit society, but this is not the world we want to live in. And the Artificial Intelligence Act that is now, as we speak, in our committees, and we platform is really important. We have the possibility now to change and translate in the correct manner the offline to the online principles and values that we share. So what we do is like not just to support the remarkable achievements, but to ensure that deep fakes that can manipulate perceptions or any effort to use AI without human oversight. With the example that I use, and it's really interesting. In UK, they used AI for a grading system to the universities, and students coming from private school, they were favored against the students that they came from disadvantaged environments. And basically it replicated the biases, but it increased even the inequalities and reduced the options for these students. And the government, Boris Johnson himself said, it's the fault of the algorithm. So the accountable to turn against is the algorithm, is not the human. It's the human that decided to use this algorithm or test it or accept the results. So this is what we try to achieve, to have accountability, transparency, a fair approach to AI. We want to ensure that you have the right to redress if you're fired in an autonomous manner. You have the right to ask for more social and ethical metrics to be there, or to have a second chance. I think it would be very interesting, not just to set up a human-centric AI, and I don't talk about an AI with the task of empowering societies, but to have a human in the center. It's really making a difference to create a trusted environment for them. I heard the last speaker was talking also about the financial sector. We don't want to exclude based on AI profiles. We want to ensure that we will have a fair treatment, and the prediction that maybe we're not to be trusted because we don't have enough savings could be a very wrong way to measure what is trust, because a person who is creative and has different and has no savings, perhaps they're more trusted to get a loan than others that actually do have savings. So I think we need to reconsider again how we translate all these principles we have offline to do it in the right way. We need to create legal certainty. It's very important also for Europe, because we have 27 member states at this point. And imagine if we have like vertical solutions, we need to have an horizontal framework that we will achieve to basically to accept, and then to ensure that we will work with international organizations and through the TTC with US to agree minimum common standards that will ensure again that we don't compromise privacy for safety or safety of citizens for profit. So I don't know how much time I have, but I think the power to break this mirror is in our hands. The parliament really is like not just engaged, but with the pandemic as a catalyst, really now has understood the power of such technology, and what are the applications that we need to ensure that the governance will follow our rules. And there are dual uses for its AI. It can provide us with great therapies, but it can also be used to create bioweapons, biological weapons. So it's up to us to make such decisions. We need to provide options to the citizens to give them control of this technology. I believe it needs to happen also by law. To allow the industry to self-regulate is not enough. So we need to set these principles on the paper to achieve quality of life, also in the digital era. So one of the final things I would like to highlight, because I don't know how much where we are, is that a subliminal manipulation of perception is also considered high-risk threat, because this could harm our democracies. And then when we have a government saying we need an ethical framework, then this government might not be a democratic one. So we need to ensure that we are aware of our choices and our options, and they are not imposed to us through constantly over-personalized newsfeed or targeted advertisements. And this would be a very interesting debate in the next months. And to have your also approach and position, it would be very interesting. Also in terms of justice, because there we understand that we are imperfect and AI will be as imperfect as we are. So we need to test it enough to ensure that we have less biases than we do, and still to use it in a complementary or supportive manner. So this is what we try to do. I've been working so much, and I really have to thank you, because me traveling there was the reason to set up the Center for Artificial Intelligence in the European Parliament. And I consider it to be a great step forward, that we hope it would follow the path of GDPR to ensure that we will impact the rest of the world, at least like-minded allies, and we complete basically our legislation for the digital economy and society with the DMA, new competition rules, services rules, and digital economy rules. So thank you so much. It's been an honor. I wish I could visit you. It's a wonderful place, and the mindset you have, that you need to test, you need to make mistakes in order to succeed, is something that I really keep in my heart, and I wish to meet with you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your remarks here, and this is really really relevant in relation to. I mean, we've been discussing discussing the risks of AI and what might go wrong. We've discussed also how to manage that, what kind of policy we need in place, and the discussion has very much been about regulation. Where are the borders for regulation, and how can we make regulation that's smart and that allows also innovation to take place. We've done that in the context of this, very globally inclusive forum we have, where we've looked also at what does regulation mean for innovation, but what does it also mean for development, taking into account some of the different perspectives around the world on that, and some of the different requirements on that. And then we've looked at the need for international collaboration, and the potential we've invited in also the United Nations, and the whole perspective around what kind of international collaboration do we need. We intend to, we're taking this collaboration further, and we intend to meet again next year, and we will endeavor to do it not on Zoom, but also in real life, and we hope we can invite you to join us. Thank you so much for your
Elise and Soren, thank you so much for the invitation, and you have an open invitation to come also in Europe, in the European Parliament, and set up a discussion there. Great to have also a different approach from the other side of the ocean, and we can always follow up. It's a very important year for the future of this technology. So thank you so much again.
Thank you. And so we will continue the discussion within the group here. We will keep. We're approaching the end of the formal program of today. So I wish to thank you all for being such active participants in the project that we've done over the past year. Those of you who have been that. It's pretty obvious to say that without you, nothing. It's been an honor and a pleasure to work with you, and I think and those are also the issues that we've touched on today, the need for sort of diversity and inclusivity in understanding these risks. They are global, they relate to all of us, there are different perspectives on them, and we have to take into account those different perspectives when we find solutions to manage. We've touched on many of those. We discussed regulation, we discussed education, we discussed sort of the cross-sectionality, we discussed how to integrate various players across geographies, but also across institutions, faculties, and industry, academia, and so forth. We need the diversity at so many levels to understand it, and obviously this discussion needs to be inclusive. We take pride in having added a little contribution to the vast, huge discussion that is still only beginning. Globally, a lot has happened. I mean, the regulations that we just heard about in Europe is one element of that, but more needs to happen. We feel that we've through your work have contributed a little bit to this conversation by inviting in such a diverse group of people to work on this project. We are extremely happy with your work and the work that our researchers and students have done. So happy that we've decided that we will continue and we will invite in annually new cohorts. And so anyone who has worked with us will remain part of our network, I hope, if you wish, and remain part of this work going forward, as we sort of continue our sort of exploration of the risks and impacts in a very wide sense of technology, and continue the learning process. So we invite you to follow that and to continue to be part of our network. Thank you to all the speakers who were with us also today. Throughout the project, we've been blessed by being able to invite in quite amazing people with really amazing insights, and that has certainly also been the case today. More than 25 speakers totally, all with really amazing insights and different perspectives. We are really grateful for your willingness to share your time and your work and your insights and your knowledge. That is really what this is all about. I think Chris mentioned earlier on and many have reflected on that, of course, humanity and humans at the center, not just in the loop, but in the center or at the center, and that requires conversation, education, collaboration across in diverse and inclusive settings. So thank you for sharing that and being part of that conversation, which is of course ongoing. And then just one more thing, and that's to Andrew, who hasn't been very much on screen today, but without whom none of this would have worked. And there are more who have sort of contributed to the project and to the conversation we've had today, but few more than Andrew. So thank you very much, Andrew, for that, and thank you to all who participated. We're not shutting down, so we've tried to have sort of open mic on Zoom, and we will not shut down the conversation here. We'll keep the Zoom open and have sort of a free chat for anyone who wishes to engage in that. I saw just a few questions, and we can try and follow up on that. But the formal program is over. You're free to hang on. I'm sorry, Zoom doesn't allow us to offer post-conference drinks. Otherwise, we would have, and they would have been good. I can promise you that. But we can offer a chat and a conversation, and please don't hesitate to reach out and stay in the loop. Thank you all. I hope I wasn't on mute there. So. And thank you also for your patience in some of the technological issues. We've also skirmished some of the challenges of that. We do aim to have the next conversation at least as a hybrid, so that we will be more present and have a wider conference presence at Stanford or elsewhere. Are there questions or comments that from anyone that we need to?
I have a question.
Yep.
Hi, my name's Carmen.
Hi.
I'm a data scientist.
I saw that earlier on. Sorry for yeah.
No worries. I guess the question was more targeted to the speakers, but I'm also happy to take it to everyone who is on the call still. How are people thinking about regulation of Web3, metaverse, DeFi, all these things are decentralized, right? It's much easier to think of regulation in terms of regulating centralized organizations, institutions. How are we thinking of centralized these things that are inherently decentralized, or regulating these things inherently decentralized, and that bring a lot other sorts of questions and potential issues, right? When we're keeping track of things as haptics and like people's eye movements and all of these things.
I'm happy to say something. Are there comments across or perhaps even experience from anyone? One comment could be that we need, of course, smart regulation that adapts to context and also the speed of innovation, but the general a general starting point could be that when we need regulation, it's regardless of the actual platform or the actual medium. So what needs to be regulated? I mean, there's a principle that's has developed in Europe that whatever and elsewhere, whatever is illegal in real life is also illegal online, or the same standards should apply online. And so just as one comment that would relate to various platforms and various digital electronic means of communication, whether it's central or decentral. There might be an issue of course of the ability to regulate whatever is decentral. Comments?
I think I have a comment. Maybe I think that's interesting to compare the centralization and the decentralization. And usually decentralization is a good thing because you can have a competition for rules and for standards, but there is this issue. Competition going to be top down, or is going to be like for the better rule or for the worst rule in the kind of societal point of view. Then I think regulation should be first acknowledge the decentralization feature of the thing, of the platform, of the gatekeeper, or what else. And the second point should be that there must be like a balance to try to direct the regulation through trying to focus on better rules and not the race to the bottom, race to the top. It would be better. And I think this is very hard in the practice, but I think this should be two guidelines. Thank you.
What do you say, Carmen?
It's an interesting question, right? So I'm a data scientist, and the comment about education resonated a lot with me. I've started a project to do exactly that, right? Because I think it's also up to us as data scientists and technologies to share the knowledge that we have, right? Most people in the general population don't understand how these things work, and how our data is being collected, how it's being used, all of that, right? And even a lot of people within tech don't fully understand it either. So I think there is people have the responsibility to try to seek this out, but we also have the responsibility to share that knowledge, right? So to that end, I started a project as a YouTube channel where I share information about these things and like sort of bring these concepts like as what is AI? Like we talk about this, like what is AI? What is machine learning? What's the difference between the two? How are they applied in our day-to-day, right? In sort of layman's terms. But I think we're, and we need to really be thinking about the regulations here, not just in the US, right, but across the world. But as we hear more about Web3 and crypto and blockchain and metaverse and so on, it just brings a whole other level of data that's being collected, right? Like our movements, not just how much time we spent on a screen, right? A particular part of the screen. It's like, how do we move our hands and what's our height and how do we interact with these things like in real life? And then there's the question as like, what is metaverse real or not real, right? And how do we treat these concepts, even getting into like a psychological and mental health perspective, right? Like, are people going to start confusing the two? Who is to judge whether things are real or not real? And how are you collecting all that data and all the information about people, and how are they being used? And when they're being collected in decentralized fashion by decentralized agents, right? How can we even think about regulating them? Like, how can we measure the impact? It's already hard enough to measure the impacts, sort of quote unquote, in real life and even to our democracies of things that are done in Web 2. How are we going to do that in Web 3? So those are the things that have been plaguing my mind lately.
Obviously, you touch on some of the core issues here. I think there are definitely two of those. One is how do we translate? So you're a data scientist, and there are various people that are part of this conversation and have to be part of this conversation. Mm-hmm. How do we translate what is technically possible, and how do we translate the impact and the ethics in that into something that's useful or usable across platforms? And then the other question, and many of the educators who've been here today are part of that. How do we ensure that the regulators, the legislators, the authorities that are tasked with monitoring and securing the efficacy of the legislation and that whole thing are also on par with the development and have a sufficient level of understanding and education into this, just underlining the education, because one thing is adopting legislation, but another one is how do we make sure that this legislation is also agile and can adapt to the developments of innovation.
Yeah, and like we haven't for Web 2 yet, or even regulating that, and we're already moving to Web 3. And
yeah, sure.
There's no regulation on that, right? So, yeah. And just for the Brazilians I shared my channel here in the chat at some point, and for the Brazilians on the call, there's also a Portuguese version of it. I'm originally from Brazil, so.
Perfect. Any other issues we should have up, or questions or comments? Any reflections from today, or we'll look at. I mean, we are inviting in a new cohort from July, and we'll continue the collaboration, and we'll look at the financial sector, but also at exactly education, and how technology impacts education, and what kind of requirements that drives. So if there are no further questions, we will we'll close, and we'll make sure to follow up. We'll write a little bit about what we talked about today, and we'll try to share this with you. So thank you for the insights, and please be part of following up and continuing the discussion.
To that end, Soren, how can we get in touch with you guys and follow up on conversations? How can we get more involved with the Institute and so on?
Yeah, so we have a webpage, gaia.world, to underline the inclusive and global nature of the question. And there's a form there you can use, and we have a LinkedIn presence as well. So that's probably the easiest way to ensure connection. But we also have you in our network now because you were part of the conversation here today.
Okay.
So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks a lot. This was great.
Thank you. Thank you, Annelise. Thank you, Rodolfo. Thank you all. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Søren. Good evening.
Yeah, across. Yeah. Good night.